Tonight we're going to talk about colored pencils. I'm going to start with talking about Crayola colored pencils. I have three different types to look at tonight. I have the color pencil we all pretty much have grown up with and used in not only art classes, but in like chemistry labs or math class or anything that we had to color something in class. A lot of times we'd use these color pencils. I have another watercolor type of color pencil. It's a Crayola that can be activated with water, and an erasable color pencil, just because I happen to have some of them here. So I thought I would show you these, show you how to use them, and show you a few ways to help blend these together. Starting with this, a lot of times what you will get with colored pencils of any brand or whatever, I picked Crayola because that's something that a lot of us have. There's a lot of brands out there. But what you'll have happen is, especially if you work really hard with them, you'll see very quickly that, let me zoom in for you, that wax starts to build up. You can see that. And so if you were to add anything else on, at this point, you wouldn't be able to, like if I try to come in here with green, you would be able to get a little bit, but not like you did the red. Like if I come over here to the paper, you can see how much more vibrant that green is because the wax has built up on the red. So it's hard to blend when you work so heavy-handed. So what I recommend you to do is to start off really smooth. And there's two ways that I apply the color pencil, is to either work in one direction, very controlled, so I can keep up with how I'm laying down the colored pencils. But then you might get like a pattern, like a grain. Talk about that in just a minute. But see how the difference between these two, see the value difference? I'll leave that on there so you can see it. But it's still really soft. But if I start to blend it, I can keep them pretty much the same intensity across because I haven't built up all that wax. So I get beautiful color blends, and they can stack up on top of each other and really get some interesting things to happen. Now, another way, okay, before I go any further, one thing that I have, let me zoom back out for here for you to see what I'm talking about. On my desk, I have this really smooth piece of board. Mine is actually a piece like a mat, like you would put down at your dinner table or something. It's the same type of rubber that you would have, like a rubber or plastic placemat. It's super smooth, and it's on the wood surface that I usually have here to do my drawings on, because you don't want that texture of the wood to show up in your drawings. If you can see here, that is a really smooth blend. It's because this underneath here is really smooth. You don't have to have one of these. You can get, again, like a placemat or something, if that smooth one, the smooth kind, a tablecloth that's smooth plastic like that, or you can get multiple sheets of paper, so that you can do some tests and see how many sheets of paper you need to have so that it doesn't have any kind of texture. But you'll see, or a piece of like linoleum, something like that, but something to get a really smooth texture underneath it. I have had people use like a thin piece of foam or something, or anyway, play with it and see. But what you're wanting is this to be nice and smooth, so when you're doing your blends, you will be able to not get a texture underneath there, okay? So what we're going to do is show you how I do that. Now this one, these were all going in a direction. Now what I do a lot of times is to hold my pencil like either on the side and work like this. So I'm getting like a soft, fuzzy patch of tone. And when you look at our graphite videos, you'll see the same thing. I'll be sending those out to you very soon. But it's just really learning how to control your pencil leads, your graphite, your color pencil. It's all the same type of thing. And using like this edge right here gives you more of a surface. If you need a tip, oh, sorry, I'm not in the camera. Using this edge right here gives you more of a surface to work with. If you want to use that tip to get really fine details, you can still work in a small, like for small details, you can still work in that fuzzy patch of tone like that and still get those blends. Because when it's soft like that, and soft and fuzzy, you can come back and still get, like if this is a green, fuzzy patch of tone here, it'll blend in well with this red. See how those worked in well together? And you could start building those up until it was that dark. Dark is the first ones we did. But you would have more to play with. Like you could keep adding other colors in here. Like if you wanted to add some yellow, there would be room to work with. So you could get a lot of interesting color blends. But if you start out that dark, that much wax on the paper, you don't have any room to work with. Now, here's the other thing, is a lot of people don't like the like that white, if this is a white paper you're working on, a lot of people don't like that white sort of staticky look in the background of this. So another thing you can do, I prepared this paper. This has ink on it because it's what I had right here. But you can use, let me zoom back out. But you can use many things. You can use watercolor. You can use markers. A lot of times you have those. And this is just ink that I use with a brush. I had something on my desk. That's why I used it, because I keep ink on my desk. And you can come back into it, since it has already taken away its color now. It's not white. You can come back in and say, this is a green color pencil. You can come back in. That's not going to show up on the camera. And start working with it and getting some interesting textures, because it's already taken that white out of the paper. And so all you have now is to deal with texture and line and working in color and some interesting like depth into the piece. And they layer up really well. So if you have like this is like a dark green area, but I'm going over it with, and again, this is just Crayola. This will work like this over marker. The paper I'm working on, again, is just a cardstock you can get from Walmart for a whole pack of it for usually around $5. That's where I got this cardstock from. But you can just layer it up. Now this I'm using a lot of force on it just because I can, and I'm not planning on doing a whole lot of layering, but I'm really interested in the texture. So, but you can do subtleties. You can come in here and get some subtle movements and do all your subtle blends. A lot of people do this kind of stuff, and they'll do their initial drawings, and they'll do a watercolor or the marker underline, and it'd be like solid colors, and then they'll come back and do all their soft modulations, like your where you want the light and dark contrast and stuff, with the colored pencils. So you'd have like if you had a thing you wanted to be green, you would just go underneath it with watercolor or ink or markers, and then you would come back and say, oh, this is going to be an eye. Well, I can come back and do all of my soft work here, all my detail work with my color pencils. And so you can get these really soft these soft notes with your color pencils instead of having it with the marker. And it's just a nice combination of things to do. So that's what you see a lot of illustrators and artists and just in general do, is that combination. And I've really enjoyed using it that way because it allows me to have that beauty and like that subtlety of the color pencils, but also get the really deep values that you can get with the wet media. Really play with both of them. Okay, that's just like a small little example. Okay, another thing, I mentioned the watercolor pencils. So if I was to do some drawings here with my watercolor pencil, okay, and then I came back in with a brush, because I have a brush right here with some water on it, I could activate my watercolor with this watercolor, with this brush. Sorry. Sometimes it's hard to talk and art at the same time. And then it'll give you some nice it gives you different textures, because with the watercolor, it's of course watercolor, but you don't have to make it all, like you can see you still have the texture of the color pencil in there, but then this nice detail. So if I wanted to come back in, even if with my paintbrush, I can come here and get some of here on my paintbrush and then go back and draw with what I'm picking up here. So it leads you to be able to be doing all kinds of stuff with it. Okay, I have no idea what I'm just having fun making colors right now. Try not to make sense out of the stuff that I'm actually drawing on the paper, but so that's a few things about that. Now, if y'all seen any of the Crayola erasables, it's been interesting because it's not just, one of the things about it is that you can erase it, right? But you can create an idea and then use because it's an erasable, you can actually draw into it, which is something you can't do with the other color pencils. So you can use the actual eraser as a tool to create a shape, which is fun. And it's really erasable. Like, there's not many color pencils that I played with that are erasable to the extent that, I mean, I could just completely erase this. So I've really enjoyed those. Those are fun to play with. But you're less likely to have these than you are the other color. One of these, too. But these are, if you get to play with some of those are fun. And I have some of those if you want to play with some of those. Okay. Let me know if you have any more questions after this, and have fun with your art.